If you're passionate about property investing or thinking about buying your first investment property, well, the Property Success Podcast is for you. It's full of tips, tricks, strategies and special guests and personal development secrets to help you have a better lifestyle, more freedom and more choice.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. Chris Selwood here, the Property Success Podcast. I'm delighted to welcome someone I call a friend, someone I've met maybe, I think maybe about 3 years ago now, Chris.
Yeah,
2021, 22. Now we're into 2025, so just maybe 3 years at the Millionaire Action Plan, the MAPS event that I've been going to since around 2021, 22. Started off in London and now moved to Meriden in the Midlands, and now we've moved slightly further up the road into Coventry just recently. Chris, you're very welcome to the Property Success Podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, all good, Chris. Thanks. Just weather could be better down here in London, but yeah, all good.
I'm just looking out the window. It's cool enough here, but at least it's dry. It normally rains where I'm at, but it's
well, I don't mind because, as you can tell with the tan, I'm just between holidays at the moment.
You're always between holidays, Chris. It's
I do
what is it? Hashtag Where's Chris?
Indeed. Oh yeah, so everyone should follow that. Yeah, hashtag Where's Chris. Yeah.
And it was interesting just when we talk about, before we get into the property stuff, we were talking about an event that we ran here on Saturday with our good friend Mark Dalton at the helm, and he posted something, or he had the slide up with yourself on it, about how much angel investment you'd raised.
I did notice I had about 7 or 8 people start following me, all with you as friends. I'm like, my ears are burning.
Yeah, that was it. So Mark had told us on Sunday morning that this had happened because I had to leave the event for a couple of hours on Saturday, and he said on Sunday morning that Chris must have been thinking that his ears were burning, because while he was showing this thing about you raising finance, and he must have mentioned how you did it through social media, and he said follow Chris on Instagram or Facebook, I can't remember, and all of a sudden, bang bang bang, he saw all these extra people liking Chris's page. So you would have been thinking that we were talking about you, and you'd be right, we were talking about you.
There's always somebody talking about me, mate.
I'm
not all as positive as property, trust me.
It's all good. And I suppose if people do, where do they find you, Chris, on social media?
So on Facebook, it's either Chris or Christopher O'Hare, O''Hare, although a lot of the Irish would know that. In the English, I always get it wrong. And on Instagram, it's COH Property.
COH, Chris O'Hare Property.
Yeah, COH Property.
We normally do that at the end, but let's get it out of the way first. So obviously you're into property. It is the Property Success Podcast. I don't always have people on that are into property, because we like to do a bit of mindset stuff too, and maybe a bit of business here and there. But how long have you been investing, Chris? And give us a bit about your background, what you did as a living, and how you sort of digressed into property.
I'll try and give you the synopsis. It's been a roller coaster, trust me. I've done a bit of everything. So I was brought up in Salford in Manchester. Irish parents.
We won't mention Man United, will we? No.
We won't. Although as bad as it is, it's the right path. Yeah. We're on the right path. As bad as that path is.
Which is a lesson for property investors too.
Exactly. You choose your pain. Do you want your pain now and rewards later, or do you want the easy route now and your pain later? So Amarin's given us the pain now, and hopefully we'll get that reward. But yeah, so brought up in literally 100 yards from the old Cliff training ground in Salford. I was brought up. Irish community, Irish parents, all in the building game, and look at them hands. They've never done any building work, so it just wasn't for me. There's no way I could have done that. I was more your artsy type, your creative. But in the 70s in Salford, where I was from, there was no opportunities or career paths to that kind of thing. It's like it's very practical, put it that way. I always say we always had everything we needed, but nothing we wanted. So we always had good food, healthy food, no, but no pop or anything like that. But it was a typical 70s upbringing, like I said, Irish immigrant kind of community who worked too hard, to be honest with you, worked too hard and didn't get paid enough. And I just didn't know what I was going to do because I knew that route wasn't for me. And most people in them days just did what the dads did. Um, but thankfully, I fell into music. I just started liking music for my own escapism. Used to sit, yeah, it is poverty for you, the old record player, but we didn't have speakers, so I used to listen to the record on the needle. Well, that gives you attention, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So just really liked me, got into listening to music from about 11, something like that, and then never ever was a thing to play. We all played the recorder, but it's not like Ireland where everyone has an instrument. So I left school left school between that and A levels at 16 and picked up the guitar. My mate, he said he'd be the bass player, I'll be the guitarist. We got a drummer in, even though none of us could play anything. But we just started jamming together. And then, I don't know, 3 years or so, we ended up getting a record deal on One Little Indian. So the same label as like Bjork and that at the time. Had a great time. Didn't earn much money, but had the best time as a musician and record producer for about 12 years. We toured all over Europe with Moby, The Prodigy, The Shaman, Faith No More, Rammstein. So had the best time. But like I said, we didn't break, but we were always tipped to be the next big thing and never were. But had a great time, and then ended up as record producers, which although we had more success there, it just wasn't as enjoyable. You're in a room with no windows for like 18, 20 hours solid. However,
What did you say the band was called, Chris?
the band was called Eskimos and Egypt, or as my dad says, Eskimos in Egypt. And then we went on to produce as producers. We produced a few hit records. We had I think it's a #1 in Australia or a #2 or something in Australia. We had the last thing I worked on in the UK when I said, right, that's me, I'm out of it, was #3 in the charts, a band called The Tamperer, Hammer to the Heart. So that's the last thing I worked on, left on a high, which was good. But just went back I just had enough. I was a bit frazzled, I guess, but we'd done it 12 years. So I suppose in all honesty, I didn't realize how good it was. I thought we were working hard, and I only found out when I started working hard how easy that actually was.
Yeah.
But went back to uni in '99 and retrained as a designer, doing all kinds of design. So, moving image, programming, obviously your print stuff, your video, 3D. So I could do a bit of everything, which served me well later on. And I was doing an internship at an interactive TV company or digital media company down on Carnaby Street in London. And they said, oh, when you finish uni, there's a job for you here. But so I graduated, and literally, I don't know whether you remember, around 2000, 2001, there was a big .com bubble.
Yeah.
So I'd give up my music career to go back to uni, graduate, and then during that period of the .com bubble, there was just no jobs. I mean, you were getting offered jobs with no salary just to get you some experience. I was absolutely mortified. So nothing in Manchester that I could find that was paying. I was doing interviews around London, and one company said, listen, we're very embarrassed, but the receptionist has just left. Do you want to come and do work on reception? And then when we do have a design job come up, we'll give you that. Now, this company, as it happened, was a company I wanted to be in. It's a company called Styler Rouge. They did the old train spotting posters, so they were really cutting edge. George Michael, Faith. They did lots of big design stuff. So it's the right place to be. but the wrong job title. Anyway, I said yes, say yes to everything. And I never ended up working on reception. The minute I went down there, they gave me an interactive job and I was away. So I did that for a few years and learned absolutely loads, but the money was awful. The money was shocking. I was commuting back to Manchester. I had my mortgage in Manchester. My ex was up in Manchester. So I decided I need some money. So I saw an advert for a job in for a PR and marketing firm in financial services. So I thought, financial services sounds like there's a few quid there. So I applied for it and couldn't believe it. I got it. And they walked me into an empty room and said, "This is the design, the creative services department that you're going to build." And I'm 3 years out of uni at this point, and I'm like, "Have you got the right guy?" I mean, I'm not sure. Anyway, started working there. It was incredible. We were incredibly successful. Did really, really well. Built up a business inside that PR firm. They used to do, it was a PR firm, so they did financial services training for the PR guys, and I used to sit in on that. So I learned a hell of a lot about financial services, about money and how money is made and how all the machine of finance works, which I found really interesting, abhorrent, but really interesting. And it did serve me well later on.
And why did you find it abhorrent, Chris? Was it just from your earlier attitudes to money that,
Well,
or
it's so there's just things like, like we were brought up the old thing, never a borrower or a lender be, and all this kind of thing. And I mean, when I found out how they make money, you think it's all pegged to something in the Bank of England, but it just isn't. There's a thing called fractional reserve banking. So if I put £100 in the bank, they can lend out 9/10 of that. So I put £100 in the bank, say that's their asset. They can lend out 9/10 to somebody who then can lend out 9/10 of that, who then can lend out 9/10 of that. And it's all pegged back to this original £100 of value. So off the back of some £100 of real value, there's thousands of pounds of money in the economy. That's a Ponzi scheme, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So if this is why you get a run on the bank. So if everybody goes back and go, "Can we have our money?" They go, "No, I've only got 10% of it."
yeah, yeah,
And that's the house of cards that our whole system is built on. It's shocking. Even when we'll go on to the financial crash, but even when the financial crash happened, that was pegged to derivatives. So you've got some value here, and then off that, they build all these financial assets, derivatives of the original value. But the slicing and dicing them, they're throwing in good assets with shit, so you can never see what you're getting. I mean, the film The Big Short goes into it really well.
yeah.
But what caused the crash in the late 2000s was 750 trillion of derivatives. Currently at the moment, or actually 1 or 2 years ago when I last looked, we now have 1.4 quadrillion, so double the amount of derivatives. They've not learned anything. So get your money out of the financial system and get your money in assets, because that's the way you protect yourself.
Yeah, so there's no point in keeping your money in the bank.
Oh, absolutely not. And even so, some people go, "Oh yeah, I invest in gold," but they do ETFs, which are a financial instrument pegged to some stored gold somewhere. You want your gold out of the financial system. You want any cash you've got into something that isn't in the financial system. Because I mean, it makes me sound a bit tinfoil hat here, but if it goes wrong, and everything I see, I can't see how at some point it won't. You want to be protecting yourself. I mean, we're all exposed to a degree, but like when they say, "Oh, 85 grand is protected in the bank," if the government ever have to write those checks, that 85 grand won't be worth 2 grand, because they've given everybody. They'll just print the money like this. There's 85 on paper, but the buying power will be next to nothing.
And the more they print, the more it devalues the pound, which
Exactly. So, I mean, I was going to go into it a little bit later. I did a little bit on crypto in 2017, and it served me really, really well. But however, every criticism they point at crypto, especially Bitcoin is probably the biggest one. You can just hit that back to fiat currency, government-run currency. But with the added exposure is at any one point they can dilute your value, just as we've seen in COVID, all over the world.
Yeah, I suppose, and the opposite is true of Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies because there is only so much of each of them. That's why there's a scarcity, and that's why
Exactly. So it's
demand.
decentralized, so nobody can increase the supply.
Yeah,
Finite amount. I think it's 28 million Bitcoin will be there isn't that many out at the moment, but there will be. The algorithm only allows a maximum at the end of 28 million. So you've got scarcity and certainly you have demand now and the supply is restricted. So I would say Bitcoin will go to the moon or go to zero. It won't sit in the middle like it currently is.
yeah. And I suppose, and people looking for this sort of thought in their head as to which side of the fence to sit on. They look at Bitcoin and think, well, it's just a series of numbers on a computer. But what is money these days? I mean,
Well, exactly. We're even fiat currency is going to digital currency, which
yeah,
is worrying because when it's a digital currency, they can track everything you spend, and they will. I think they will start. A bit like they did in China with the Good Citizen program. I think they will start giving have a reward system on, you buy vegetables, you get 10% more, this kind of thing. And especially in the future with AI, when we start having things like a universal income. I mean, I personally don't think we're going to need police in the future. I think we're going to have a really sophisticated CCTV, which we've already got. I went in an Amazon store and you can literally go in, scan the app, pick up stuff, put it in your bag and leave. And it's all face recognition, tracking you around the store. You put something back, you take something else, and it tracks the whole thing. And you come out and you go, wow, that's amazing. And then you look up and you see CCTV cameras everywhere. And you're like,
that's not going to be too good when you tell the missus or the partner that you're only going to the pub for a couple of pints.
this is it. This is it. However, once we are on that universal income, I think the combination of a universal income and that comprehensive CCTV, you won't need the police. They'll just dock your universal income next week if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
Or reward it because they've tracked you running X number of miles or whatever. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Strange and weird times ahead. So you
Oh, sorry. So I ended up working in financial services, made somebody very rich. I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, absolutely wired out of my head. Needless to say, wasn't the nicest person to be around. So family life kind of went wrong, all the rest of it. And 2007, I just hit the panic button, left, just handed him a notice because I was burnt out. I was wired. I didn't have the time in the day to sit back and think what should I do. So it's just literally hit the panic button and left the job. Then I looked back at all the money I'd earned, and I'd left with £5,000 in the bank. Classic rich dad, poor dad. You earn, you spend, you earn, you spend. I had a really good salary at the time, great bonuses, but I think one year we ended up going to Dominican Republic, Australia, Tunisia, Ireland a few times, all in the 1 year. I couldn't enjoy any of it because I'd be on the phone half the time. And we'd go out for 350 quid meals and I couldn't taste it because I was so stressed. Everything tasted metal. So it was awful. It was absolutely awful.
It was interesting, just to digress a bit. I was listening to a bit of Jim Rohn earlier, and it was talking about people's attitude to money. And he says, show me a house that's bringing in 2,000 quid a month, and you look at what they spend stuff on. He said, and I'm sure nearby there's someone earning £3,000 a month. But the difference in the lifestyle is virtually, you can't see any difference in lifestyle. Yet one family spending £1,000 a month more, and you wonder, what do they do with that £1,000 a month? And as you just said there, it doesn't matter what you earn, people will spend what they earn. They don't invest any of it. They're just trained to, like as you said, what was the quote you had earlier? Never a borrower, lender be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Whatever money you get, you just go and spend it. You don't invest in anything.
And they spend more than they earn. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Because
yeah,
there's a great definition of wealth, isn't it? People mix up wealth and income,
yeah,
two very different things. To me, wealth is if your current income, if your earned income stops tomorrow, how long does your lifestyle continue
continue or
at the level it is?
yeah,
And most people, it's a couple of months. It's a couple of
yeah.
months before the savings are used up, and
I think that's key why people should actually sit down and do a financial spreadsheet of where they are, your assets and your liabilities, because most people have loads of liabilities and no assets whatsoever.
when I first did that, the amount of shite that I had that was paying for every month that I never used. I had three insurances on my house. Only one would pay out. I just assumed as I got a new one, the old one would cancel, and it didn't. And of course, they'll just keep taking the money until you tell them to stop.
Yeah, yeah,
Subscriptions I hadn't used in ages, just rubbish. Hundreds and hundreds of pounds a month I'd saved just by doing that one thing. Literally going through my bank statement and reconciling against what I was spending, seeing where it was going, and you just save, the value of a couple of buy-to-lets without even lifting a finger, really. But
yeah.
I love it. I love my income. I love income and outgoings. I love my cash flow forecast, and I love my net worth calculator. It's just like another one of those constant little endorphin hits that you need, just to keep going. I do it weekly.
Yeah, I'm the same. I would
Oh, if not more often. Yeah.
maybe on a Sunday morning, because I've got a number of interest only mortgages, but I've got a few that I chuck a few quid at just to pay down. Oh, sorry, my watch is Siri's trying to speak to me. And I just like to do even 10 or 15 minutes every week so that I can see whether I'm going in the right direction or the wrong direction. It's,
Absolutely.
I mean,
It's a moving target. It's constantly evolving, so it is important to track it. And also, once you've got a business of a certain scale, problems aren't so obvious. There's a lot of moving parts. So my cash flow forecast will warn me months in advance if I'm going to be buying here, refinancing there. These are big chunks of money flying in and out. I want to see black holes in my cash flow as early as possible. If you've got a 50 grand black hole, you don't want it to be 2 weeks away. You want it to be 3, 4 months away.
yeah, so you can do something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you were doing a bit.
Yeah, so I left the city in a huff.
Yeah.
And then I managed to negotiate to get one of our clients, which was a big bank, big Dutch bank. I don't know whether I should name it or not, as a client. And so I set up on my own, still working 18 hours a day. However, at this point, I was getting paid £135 an hour for it. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be retired in 2 years. Anyway, after about 6 months of that, the financial crisis happened. So the second time in my life I was cracking on, something came and fell apart. The whole world fell apart this time to stop me having my little business. And yeah, everything just stopped. It's an absolute nightmare. But
And had you any of the 5 grand left, or was
well,
it?
I'd earned a lot. So at this point, I had a nice little buffer, which
Yeah,
gave me like a period of time to start finding new clients. So eventually, this big bank was bought out by another bank, and so literally all the work with that bank stopped. And obviously the crisis happened, so financial services, nothing was happening for a period. But I had a little nest egg now that could buffer me over the next 6 months to a year. In which time I went round all my old contacts who left that bank and went like that. So now I had like 10 different banks, private equity, fintech providers. So I had a healthier business. I wasn't nearly as exposed. So I had that business, and I've still got that business to this day, but I stepped back from it a few years ago, and my number two has been running it. But we're in the process now of wrapping that up. Yeah, it's numerous reasons. Can't go into it one here, unfortunately. So yeah, so I was doing that, and my business was great, my income was great, I had a really nice lifestyle. And then in 2016, two big things happened. One, Brexit happened, and two, I turned 50. So two big milestones for me, because Brexit showed me anything can happen. Anything can happen. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're pro it, anti it, I don't care anymore. To me, it's happened, we've got to get on. But what it did show me is you can't defer responsibility to other people, because they can do anything, and it's outside of your control if you've deferred the responsibility. So that made me go, right, you need to be more proactive in your journey, if you like. Because although I was in business, I was in business, I was an entrepreneur, it wasn't planned, it was very instinctive. I was just firefighting, basically. It's like whack-a-mole, and the squeaky wheel got the oil. So I was over here doing this because they were saying they need it, and then right, and I was just always in a little bit of crisis. And the way I managed crisis was work longer and harder. I didn't have a strategy or a plan. It's the same old thing. You only know what you know. Nobody had ever taught me how to do that. Nobody ever taught me how to run a business. It was all reinventing the wheel, kind of learning by your mistakes. If you made a mistake, you worked twice as hard to make up for the mistake. So it was a hard way to run a business. And then yes, two things. And turning 50, I thought, right, okay, this retiring early business, because my design business, although it was great, I was pretty much shackled to the office, to the desk. Not a healthy lifestyle, very sedentary, long hours, sat at a desk, computer desk. I'm surprised my back's not bad. It's absolutely great, thank God, touch wood again. But regularly working into the small hours, regularly go to bed at 3 o'clock and up again at 7 to start work again. So I wanted to look at this early retirement plan that in my head I would have. And then it dawned on me, when you stop working, the money stops. So at this point, musicians weren't very big on pensions and all this. So I had a pension that, if I retired at, I think I looked at 55, I'd get a couple of grand a year. So I thought, well, what happens if I work till 60? Oh shit, that's still rubbish. And I worked out I had to work till I was about 78 to get about 30 grand a year in income from a pension. So that weren't a plan. So then I was kind of on high alert then, thinking I have to find another way. Now, I didn't have any indication or inclination or idea of where that was going to lead me. It was just doing what everybody's told me to do. And I didn't process it this clearly, but doing what I was supposed to do wasn't getting me where I needed to be. So I needed to find another plan. And I looked at everything. I tried everything, looking, asking around, seeing what other people were doing. Like I said, I dabbled in crypto and we did okay in crypto, but it wasn't income. It wasn't money you could live on. Although if I'd kept the 12 Bitcoin I had at one point, I'd have been all right. Oh, we did all right in crypto, can't we? So I just looked around at everything, and then I met a girl, and she was saying she was in property, but she talked about it in a way I'd never heard anybody speak about before. So she was talking about MIMO and OPM and all this stuff, master classes and training. I was like, what the hell's this all about? Anyway, so she signposted me to some networking events. Started telling me about there's training out there you can get. And so the way I thought of it, it was like all this stuff that I'm doing, it's given me a great life. Like I said, I'd had a great lifestyle, long hours, but lifestyle was very good. I had a nice house, I had lots of disposable income. I could do what I wanted within the limited time I had available. I was very flexible, but not for long periods. So I could go away on unlimited amount of long weekends, but never 2 weeks at a time, say, because the business needed me. So it was the classic golden handcuffs kind of situation. But the way she was talking about it, building up passive income, don't rely on a pension, all this, I was like, oh. So I was really intrigued, looked into it, and then just decided to do the training, which was at the time it was 25k, which was a hell of a lot of money. But I think at the time I was so desperate for a solution because obviously 50 and everything you believed in, you were just, in fact, I was 52 and a half at this point. It's like, it was 2 years of kind of trying to find something led me to this point. And I just thought, if what she's saying is true, it's magic. It's like voodoo. It was almost too good to be true. In the back of my head, I was thinking, because I'd met so many people at networking events that had done that. They got the training, did the work, and were coming out the other end with good incomes for the rest of their lives. But I still couldn't believe it. I was like,
Yeah. Here's a quick question, Chris. If when you mentioned there it was 25k for the training and you maybe had a bit of disposable income, were you so convinced at the time that if you didn't have the money, would you have found the money from somewhere or would you have just forgotten about it?
no, it's hard to say because I'm not even sure whether I would have put my hand up. You have to go to the initial
Yeah,
introduction event and then put your hand up. Because I went to that event knowing I was signing up. Most people go not knowing, but
yeah,
I'd done the research, and by the time I'd done the research, I knew I had to do it.
yeah.
So I think the answer to would I have raised the money if I could, or I paid another way, yes, because at that point my research said if you don't do this, you'll never get over the what if.
I'm just thinking if someone else was listening, once you're in that training 5, 6 months, there's a big mindset shift where you realize what's possible. Would you say to people, if you can just get to that point, you'll understand then that even spending that kind of
Mm.
insane sort of money, if you like, for training, because it's almost like going to university.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's absolutely way cheaper than go to university, and the outcomes are way better than go to university.
yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, these days it's cheaper than that anyway. You won't have to pay 25 grand these days. That most training, there's been a realignment post COVID and all this kind of thing. The industry has changed. But would I say back yourself? Absolutely, because the thing is, to me, it's always, if not that, what? And I didn't have another plan B. It's like, and I needed a plan B because I didn't have that much time left on my hands to actually put another plan in place. It's like I've had a few, I was a musician and as a designer, and this would have been my third career. So it's you're starting from scratch. So don't waste time and don't people go to university without blinking. And my daughter's going to come out of university with like 60k debt at 20.
wow.
Um, so to me, so I remember saying to the guy who worked for me at the time, I said, wow, 25k. I said, this is either going to be the most expensive mistake I've ever made or the cheapest thing I've ever done. Because
Yeah.
if it's true, it's peanuts. It's peanuts. Um, if it's all a big fabrication, then I've been ripped off for 25 grand. It's a nightmare. So yeah, so but I like I said, I'd researched it enough to know people were making this work. And there is something about so these I've seen a lot of people pay 5, 6 grand for the training these days. And it's much more of a what do you call it? What do you call it? What are those things near the shopping tills at the supermarkets? Not opportunistic purchases, uh, where you can just go, oh, go on then, I'll do it. So 5 grand to some
It's like impulse buying,
impulse. It's more of an impulse thing, whereas 25 grand is, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you've paid that amount of money, and I mean, you owe it to yourself. You've got to get the value out of it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's almost like an accountability thing. I've spent this money. I've got to make it bloody work. Whereas, even though 5 grand is still a lot of money to lose, I think I've seen more people spend the 5 grand and have less accountability than the 25 when you've just got to make it work. It's that thing, isn't it? It's you if you've got a plan B, you're less likely to work as hard on your plan A.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've burnt your bridges, burnt your boats, in the classic one in Think and Grow Rich, where the small army arrives on the beach, the general was it Alexander the Great, as somebody says, we are gonna win or die on this beach, and they burnt the ships. And
Yeah.
of course, they were outnumbered, outgunned, outmanned, the whole shebang. But they beat them because they had no plan B. And when
Yeah.
you've got no plan B, you're all in on your plan A. Whereas when you've got so if you think there's 3 lanes, you've got the fast lane, people with huge incomes, they can do well because they can just throw money into it. You've got people in the pain lane, they've got no plan B, they've got to make it work. And then you've got
Yeah.
the people in the middle lane, kind of life's not too bad. I'd love a passive income, give myself a bit of free time and holidays, but they're quite comfortable. They're the ones who have to work harder at the mindset stuff. The people in the pay. So it's interesting because people go, God, you were so unlucky having to pay the 25K. And I'm like, I'm not sure it was, I'm not sure it was unlucky. That gave me a massive accountability. And then you get people in the kind of coasting middle lane thinking about the people in the pain lane. Oh, God bless them, they're 20 grand in debt, 30 grand in debt, that they're a single mum, oh, they've not got a job. Oh, they're the people who have to make it work, and
Yeah.
they're more likely to succeed.
Yeah. Um, so you'd spent the 25 grand. You could see who did you meet? Like, was there somebody there? Did you meet Mark when you were doing it?
So
Or
yeah, so I'd done all the networking events, and I'd been to one networking event where Mark was there. He won't remember it. Mark Dalton, he was
yeah,
my mentor when we started, and now he's a very good friend. Um, and I just seen, I just when I heard that, another one, Craig Hopkins. I went to Mark's networking event in what was in Wandsworth, and now it's in. Oh, he still holds it in Wandsworth. It was the Monday night one.
yeah, in the Alma, yeah,
20 quid in the Almo, went there. And the first one I went to, I was like seeing how it worked. I didn't really understand it. But I saw people would go with their situation. So I remember just writing down everything that I was thinking, and then waiting for somebody. And Craig had a little gap. So I went up to Craig and go, hi, this is me. This is my situation. I want to do this. I want this, that, and the other. And he just sat me down, and literally in 5 minutes, honestly, now when I look back, it's like property 101, buy, refurb, refinance, and I'll go again. But it just felt like voodoo. It's like, what? Just talk me through that again. And it was it just, I'd never seen anything like that be done with a financial um, investment thing. Even though I knew lots about financial services, the people even in financial services haven't got the financial IQ to do what
Yeah,
we do. So there's a
absolutely.
very big difference between the two there. Um, and I just that was the tipping point because I just thought I've just got to be around these people. Like
Yeah.
the old thing, rub shoulders is I've just got to be around these people, and hopefully some crumbs will drop off the table to me.
And it always does. So did you, at that point, did you jump straight in the deep end? Because I know some of the things you've done. Did you do the buy to lets first, and
Well,
find
went
color?
and got the training and started on the buy to lets, but I went straight onto a thing with Mark Dalton called a T60.
Yeah,
Uh, and we went, so I'd already, by the time I'd started the T60, I'd had a couple of buy to lets under my belt. So we went straight in on HMOs. And so, but we worked, so it took, it took months to kind of get the HMOs going. So exactly like, you see the property triangle, the buy to lets at the bottom. I'm a great advocate for keeping it simple at the beginning.
yeah,
Just because there's a lot of stuff around the actual property that you need to know how to work with a broker. Can you get lending? What kind of lending for what kind of project? Can you raise money? There's all that stuff in the ecosystem before you even look at the project itself. So I always say keep the project simple while you learn the world, the property world.
yeah.
And then once you've got an appreciation for all of that, then you can work on more complex strategies. So exactly like you said, started on buy to lets, moved up to HMOs, did some flips, um, did a commercial to Resi, which was a nightmare because it was during COVID. Build costs went up 180 grand. So I managed to sell that with a planning gain and just got out like a small profit, but I was just glad to see the back of it because it was a nightmare. Like the stress levels I was under was incredible. So so then I went back, did more HMOs, and now we're doing our first hotel.
Yeah, I was going to say the property triangle, keeping it simple at the bottom, the sort of cookie cutter thing, buy to lets, then maybe flips and moving into HMOs, serviced accommodation. I'm not sure if you've done serviced or dabbled in, you haven't dabbled in
No, I've
service.
not done any essay as like an Airbnb side of
Yeah,
things.
straight into hotels, of which we're myself and Mary obviously going to stay at the
Oh, of
start.
course, yeah.
Looking forward to that. In Aviemore in the
In Aviemore in the Cairngorms in Scotland, yeah. So we looked at a few different areas. So I'm doing it with two business partners, and they've done this before. So my
yeah,
job in the kind of equation was raising the angel finance. I wouldn't have got institutional lending on that project because track record. So the refurb side of things is relatively straightforward on this project. As far as it can be straightforward on a building of that scale. But I couldn't have even embarked on this on my own if I wanted to, because you exactly like you said, essay and the steps to it.
yeah,
So by working with people who have done it before, opened some doors. So one of the guys, he had relationships with the lender we've went with. I mean, we've got the lending on the purchase of that at 8.1% on a variable. So it's so it'll be 7.6 now, which is amazing. 65% loan to value though, that's the kicker, and it's a repayment mortgage. But that's cheap money for a commercial project like that.
yeah. Over how long is that, Chris?
It's an open-ended one. It's like 25 years or something.
Oh,
Oh no, sorry, the tracker is for 5 years. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're
So
not
that's
tied in. We're not tied in. There's no big early repayment
And
charges.
then
So
after the 5 years, you can renegotiate, maybe pay another arrangement
well,
fee.
we'll do that sooner. So we bought for 900, 65% loan to value on the mortgage because this. I mean, if we go back a little bit, so I'll talk about that project. It might be interesting. So we were looking at different areas where we had 52-week seasons, if you like. So we didn't want like a seaside town where in the winter it's dead for 3 months. You can
Yeah.
make all your money in, July, from May to September, October or something. So we looked at a few places and where we started putting offers in was Edinburgh and Aviemore. And we got one offer accepted. Well, we did have one offer in Edinburgh, but we were gazumped. But we had one offer accepted formally, subject to planning permission in Aviemore, and it was turning what was already a B&B into an apart hotel, so a kind of a smart hotel with lots of technology in it. And we had 85 objections. I mean, ridiculous. All B&B owners in the area, I'll add. But the planning guy came out and he goes, "Well, what's the script with this one then?" He goes, I get less objections to wind farms than I have to your hotel." So we're just like beside ourselves. But we knew we were going to get some. We'd seen the comments on the portal, on the planning portal, so we knew we'd go to committee. So whatever the fee was to go to committee was like £5,000 or something. And then when we get to committee, it's all the people who've put in the objections. So we were stitched up. But because we'd got the approval from the planning officer, we could go to the national level,
Yeah.
who should have just implemented black and white planning law, planning regulation. But, we're hearing, I'm feeling, we're like, oh, what do you mean you're feeling? I get the impression. What do you mean get the impression? It's, is it or isn't it? Anyway, so nearly 2 years, 30 grand in, and we get a no. We're absolutely gutted. But I always say, get in your area, do the work, and then happy accidents happen. So what happened on this particular one was we were holding, I think it was an open day, or we were doing the three of us were up there for something to do with the original one that was in planning, and we were, getting close to expecting a result from the national level. Anyway, we're walking down the high street and we see this beautiful building and we go, one day, one day. And by the time we got to the other end of the car park, for sale, like no way. Absolutely no bloody way. Anyway, knocked on the door. The guy took us round. We're like, this is a cracking deal. This is a cracking deal. So, run the number. And there's an interesting story about, to me, it's like the universe always tests you. So the year before, because the angel funds had dropped, because we weren't expecting originally any problems with the planning, because we were going from B&B to hotel. Who's going to really complain about that?
Yeah.
Anyway, then so I'd started raising the angel funds. We'd got them ready to go, and then it's apparent we're going to have 12 months of planning nightmare here. But I've already committed to like 400 grand of angel finance or something. I'm like, bloody hell. So, right, okay, I've got to deploy it. I can get it in and out of deals between now and when the planning comes through. So I ended up doing a couple of buy-to-lets thinking, right, this isn't churning it quick enough. So I did a HMO and I had enough to, after buying a few buy-to-lets, to buy and refurb the HMO, probably 250, 260 grand. So I had the offer accepted, all ready to go, builder lined up, ready to go. And then obviously what happens in property, I got another deal accepted, another HMO offer accepted. I'm like, shit. I've got enough to buy them both, and I've got enough for about a month of the refurb on each of them. But I'm about 280 grand short of both refurbs and the whole thing. for the whole project. So I had a choice: say no to the second one and stick with the HMO, or say yes and back myself to raise the 280. And when I look back now, it's a bit mental, a bit mad, but I decided to back myself. And given the fact that the once we purchased the pot, it's like 16 grand a week going out of the bank, and you can't not pay your builders. I mean,
Yeah.
golden rule. So before that money run out, I had to get the money in, and I think I raised, I raised 70% of it like within 3 days, 4 days. I've got like I have a little deal sheet that I send out to investors, even if, I hope the investors are watching this, even if the deal is funded, I'll pop out my little mailing list and then it's the takeaway. Oh, this is fully funded now. So that just constantly working on that kind of getting the what's the word? You know, they don't want to miss a FOMO, building the FOMO of your investor list. So yeah, so I got most of it really quickly, so we could get going. We were at the refurbs, but I think it's like the last 50 grand was a bloody nightmare. And obviously, you can't appear to be desperate when you're raising money. So it's just like, well, I had like investors going, I might do. I tell you what, I'll let you know in 2 weeks. And you're going, yeah, no worries. When you're ready, just let me know. And inside, I'm like, dear. But anyway, did that, raised the money, did the 2 HMOs. And then when the big hotel came, the additional funds required from the first project, which was smaller, to this one was exactly the amount, well, not to the pound, but to 20 grand or something, that I had to back myself to raise to get the second HMO. So it was like the universe was saying, you're going to back yourself. And I went, and I backed myself, and it went, you deserve this now. There you go. Because we wouldn't have been able to do that deal if we hadn't
So
raised.
you did the 2 HMOs, and you sort of refinanced, got the money back, and we're good
Yeah,
to go
exactly.
on the hotel deal. Uh, uh,
And
and
even I mean, everything you do, there's like 10 stories around in it. To get the money, because this was in an area that was becoming Article 4, Coventry. So we had like got, we're in like May, and Article 4 was September, May, June, July, August. Yeah, so we got like 3.5, 4 months from completion to Article 4 coming in, which means the HMOs have got to be up and running prior to Article 4 coming in. Otherwise,
Article 4, Chris, just for the people in Northern Ireland.
so you have a thing called permitted development,
Yeah,
and there are certain things you can do under permitted development. They permit you to do that level of development. So a
yeah.
3 meter extension is an example. A loft conversion to a certain size you can do under. They permit you to develop to a certain size. Once you go beyond that, you have to go into planning permission. So when they bring in Article 4, that removes the permission to do the development. It removes permitted development. So when you create a HMO, you take a C3. Use classes on buildings all have a different use class. So a residential house is a C3 and a HMO is C4. And you're allowed to go from C3 to C4 under permitted development. However, when they bring in Article 4, it removes that permission. So C3 to C4 would require planning permission. And bear in mind, uh, they've brought in Article 4 because they're trying to limit the number of HMOs in a given area. So you don't want to be going to planning permission. A friend of mine in that exact area, he'd finished one HMO and he hadn't finished the other, and he was very casual about it. And I'm like, aren't you worried? You've got to get that in before September the 1st. He goes, oh, I'll just apply for planning permission. I'm like, are you sure? Anyway, he got his permission rejected. I don't know
The,
whether.
re the reason why I asked that is in Northern Ireland, everything for HMO needs planning. So
Right. Yeah. So
if you're buying a property off someone else that's had a license for years and maybe doesn't have planning because they've had it since way before planning was introduced, then they need to get a certificate of lawful use and development, which
Yeah.
stays with the house. So then they sell you the house, they've applied for the retrospective plan, if you like, and then once you buy the house and that's in place, you go and get a license. If you don't have planning and you buy an existing HMO that never had planning, you won't get a license because it doesn't have the planning. And then we
Even
have
if can't you if you've got the old HMO license, that can't you get a certificate of lawful development?
the license doesn't come with the house. The license for the person, not the house. So it's the owner or the agent that's got the license, not the house. Even though it's based on the characteristics of the house. So
The
basically,
certificate of lawful development, it will give you the grandfather rights for a new.
pretty much. Now, there's a change in the rules in terms of the area. So there's policy areas which are oversubscribed, no HMOs, no new ones. So if you're buying one that's in one of those areas, you need the club to be able to apply for the license in your name. There's 10% rules, which are most of the side streets. And if more than 10% of the existing stock have got an HMO license, you'll not get another HMO license. And it's even if it's a big road, you know, like say the Falls Road or the Shankle Road or the Antrim Road, one of these big roads that or Newton Ards Road that's miles long. It's the 300 houses either side of your front door. So if you go left and there's more than 10, you'll probably not get it. If you go right and there's more than 10, you'll probably not get it. So it's all about 10% rule. And then there are other areas where they call them, what do they call it? Not permitted development. They're trying to encourage you. The word escapes me for now, but they're trying to encourage people to do develop properties into HMOs. They're usually main arterial routes, and then all those main arterial routes that are thought it's something development, but it's not permitted. Anyway, the streets off those are all 10%, and most of everywhere else is 10% apart from the policy areas. So you do need planning in some form or another, which is.
And do you buy subject to planning?
Yeah, we bought one subject to planning, and they allowed us to go in.
A hard negotiation with a residential seller, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we were buying the last one we bought. Someone was trying to convert the ground floor into a pizza shop, and had run out of money. So they basically ripped apart a big 6-bedroom house and meant the ground floor was rubbish. They'd moved the kitchen up into the middle floor. So we bought and we agreed subject to planning, went in, got the plans drawn up, submitted them, and then when we actually bought the property and got the keys in mid-September, about 2 weeks later, we got the planning through because we'd already submitted it while they were still owning it. So we were ahead of the game a little bit. And then another one we've just bought, got the keys mid-November. Architect was busy. He then came out mid-November, end of November, submitted planning 26th or 27th of November, and we got it in 2 weeks ago. So it only took 6 weeks. But in some areas, people are experiencing big delays because the locals are complaining. Because one, they think students, party land, asylum seekers, too many cars, all sorts of stuff. So they have this idea in their head of what HMOs are going to look like, when actually it's not. We're bringing young professionals in that are earning good money, that are going to spend money in the shops and whatever in the local area. So some locals are objecting, and then councillors and MLAs are getting involved. So it's not straightforward. Sometimes it is, and other times it's not. But yeah.
It's a bit like anything though, isn't it? It's like it's knowing your area, because obviously there's binary and not the meanings change these days, but there's binary and non-binary planning as well. So some areas you'll go to at the planning department and it's I'm having a bad hair day. No, you're not having it. And then for no apparent reason, the week after somebody could get it. Whereas if it's binary, as long as you meet the criteria, the likelihood you're going to get it is very, very strong. So
Yeah.
at least that's a stable playing field. But again, it's knowing your area, understanding how it all works.
Well, it's like anything, just when you mentioned there about hotels, if you know that you're meeting the planning criteria, you'll probably get there eventually, but it's just delays, and people need to be careful if they're borrowing angel money and expecting it to be done and dusted in 12 months, when
Yeah.
actually you could get to 12 months and still be appealing the planning, the planning
And
permit.
And I mean, that's a great point. Drawing down angel money when you're, especially if you're in a new strategy or a new area, because you only know what you know, and there are
Yeah.
so many unknowns when you're starting out. You have to tread carefully, which is, like I was saying, in my design business, everything was reinventing the wheel, instinct, whack-a-mole, firefighting. My property business couldn't be more different. From day
Yeah.
one, got a mentor. What I'm not reinventing the wheel. I say, how do you do this? He told me how to do that. I went off and did it.
Yeah.
I'm not into the unknown at any given point. I'm not reinventing the wheel. My favorite saying, because when I started property, is very cynical, very, very cynical, and negative as well. I mean, the mindset stuff we haven't even touched on really. But when I paid that 25 grand, I just thought, there's no point paying this 25 grand and bringing all your baggage with you. So I committed to myself that whatever I was told to do, I would just do it unquestioningly. So my line was, yes, Mark. Chris, go and stand in the corner and hop on one leg. Yes, Mark. I would have done it. You know,
He gets people to say that quite often, to be fair, and people normally do. Yes, Mark.
yeah, because especially at the beginning, so we all find our own little way of doing it, but at the beginning, you haven't a clue what you're doing. And I do a bit of mentoring, and you have some people who just question everything from square one. And
Yeah.
there's a million ways to skin the cat, but you just got to choose your lane and stay in it. You don't want to
Yeah.
be jumping lanes all the time like this, and this. So if you decide this guy's going to be my mentor, you just do what he says until you've built up the experience to know why he's told you to do it these ways. Like a mentor isn't going to sit down and go, well, here's all the things that can go wrong. It's just, time is money. So do this, do that, do the other. You've got enough to think about what you should be doing without going into the ins and outs of every single possible reason why you shouldn't do it a different way. You focus on the positive steps, not on, oh, I could do it that way. Well, go and do it
I
that
mean,
way.
if you say when you get a mentor, there's two things. Either you respect their time enough to go, I'm going to do what they say, or you're paying them money. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
which case, what's the point in paying the money if you're not going to listen to what they say? And at least use what those people or that person is telling you, and implement it and stick to it. And to the point, as you say, you learn enough where you can go, right, maybe I need a different mentor because I want to do something different. And that person that got you to where you are might not be the person to get you to where you want to go, but at least initially, you know, if you're going to pay for it, are going to be respectful, listen to what people are telling you. I get too many people that come to us and you tell them stuff and then they just go and do something completely different. And you think, what was the point? What
And
was
it
the
and it's never better in the long run. I mean,
no,
occasionally there might be the outlier, but on the whole, it's like just find somebody who's done what you want to do, then copy it, and
yeah,
that's it. Just keep it simple.
yeah,
Property really, the initial strategies, they're really simple. They're not simple, but not easy.
yeah.
So, you're going to have enough on your plate with the actions you have to take without adding a load of complexity in by throwing fly in the ointment every time you're told anything. Some people just refuse to just keep it simple and crack on because they think there's some magic sauce you're not telling them. And you're like, there isn't. It's just consistency, tenacity, turning up, being positive. It's not
I,
rocket science.
I used to think the same thing. I used to get kind of annoyed when I went to networking events and I heard people talking about, yeah, I got my angel to put money in here. And I thought, I used to come home annoyed, and Mary would say, what's wrong? Oh, like, these guys, they're getting this bloody angel money, like, but they won't tell you where they're getting it from. And it was as if I was missing out on angelinvestors.com when there's a bloody list.
Better do a sign up to
yeah.
get it.
Yeah, as if there was a secret to getting them, and there is secrets, but it's not as easy. You need to put the time and the effort in. You need to nurture relationships. As Mark was saying on Saturday, you need to sow seeds. You need to build. You have to be constantly working at it. And most people think that there's just this magic formula, like 2 + 2 = 4. And that's it. It's that straightforward. It's, as you say, it's simple, but it's not easy. You have to keep working.
So when how to assess a deal is very simple. Very simple. How to check demand on an area is very simple. How to start sowing the seeds and build up credibility and track record. It's very simple. People want a magic bullet, something, and they assume it's got to be super complicated, like a nuclear physicist degree or something, and it's not. But what is hard is that turning up constantly, the consistency,
and putting the bloody time in as well. It's like people want a shortcut to everything.
Absolutely, and no excuses. Everybody has shit going on in their life. Everybody has crises. There's nobody lives a charmed life. We've all been through stuff to get to where we are. But you have to just draw a line in the sand and go, oh, my boss is going to be pissed off because I'm not doing overtime on Thursday.
Yeah.
But is that job going to change my life?
No.
So you do the thing, the one thing, you do the thing that is going to have the biggest impact on you. And that's from a life perspective, i.e., property is going to change my life, or whatever you decide to do. So you've got to prioritize it. And then also on a daily basis, you've got 50 things to do. What's the one thing that's going to have the biggest impact? Make sure that's done.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. People want to be fast tracked into everything, and sometimes you just need to put the hard yards in. But so Chris, I know I'm conscious of your time, and we've been talking for quite a bit of time.
Love a chat, Chris. Not that I prefer it with a pint in my hand, but
well, I mean, we could talk. I might someday I should do a podcast, like an evening podcast, where it just slowly but surely goes downhill the more pints are drunk.
Well, what's his name? The United Stand. He does it from the Goldbridge Arms. He has like a little pub that he does it in.
Oh, is it Mark Goldbridge?
Mark Goldbridge,
yeah. He's a bit mental, but worth listening to if you're a United fan. Tells it as it is, I think. But so you started off cookie cutter HMO, buy-to-lets, moved on to the HMOs. They're sort of giving you the freedom of doing what you want and traveling and whatnot. And now you're getting into hotels, and it's on, it is that sort of triangle, getting to the top, running hotels.
Yeah, so the thing is, the buy-to-lets, unless you become conveyor belt, I mean, I know people who smash out 15 buy-to-lets, 20 buy-to-lets a year, and they've decided not to change strategy, just quicker and more of the same.
Yeah.
Most of us will move up the kind of property triangle to higher cash flowing projects when there's more to know, the build is more extensive, the funds required become more, so you grow into your own skin, if you like. So there's lots of different ways to get the freedom you're looking for. This is the thing, there isn't one way for everybody. I didn't enjoy that whole process of the commercial to residential conversion. I just felt it was so slow. It was so big. Every time anybody spoke, it was 10 grand more. It was, but and again, you only know what you know. And I was learning on the job, which I definitely shouldn't have done. I should have had a mentor for that project before I even decided to do it.
Yeah. And that would be
one thing I do have, and I don't know whether you can insert slides or something, But I do this slide. So every year, kind of as part of my sowing seeds, I do like a little post, like what I've done in over the 5 years that this is then, this is now, how long it's been doing it. And I have this slide. So it's like it's a snapshot of what it takes, really. So last year was my 6 year anniversary in property. I started in 2016. So 60 months in property. I drove 59,394 miles to my different investment areas. I did 108 trips. I paid over 100K in interest to investors, installed 50 bathrooms, renovated 64 bedrooms, 21 kitchens fitted, one stench pipe collapsed, 2 car crashes. So I said, if I saw that when I was starting, I'd go,
Yeah.
yeah. So that a little bit of blissful ignorance is a good thing, because if you know fully what you're taking on board, it might scare you off. But once you're a year in and you've got some buy-to-lets under your belt and that, you're in too deep then. And you realize, okay, it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. There is no end point to it. Even now, I've got more cash flow than I spend already. And then, once the hotel's completed, that will be another big bump. But I really enjoy. I enjoy the networking side, going up meeting people like yourself at different events. I enjoy the deals. I enjoy the process. So yeah, I'll do it in a different way, and I'll maybe I won't be doing 60,000 miles and things like that. Although I met somebody who did 70,000 miles in 1 year. In 1 year, he didn't start till 2021, and he's a capital strategy, so a different strategy to me. He's now got a pot of 6 million.
Wow.
From 2021.
Wow.
But that took 70,000 miles per year. So you can achieve what you want. It's what you're putting in.
Yeah, it's what you put in. It's like computers. You put nothing in, you get absolutely nothing out. You need to.
It's like anything in life. I love the saying, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're comfortable, you're coasting, and that's fine. If you're happy, fine. But, if you go to the gym and you're saying, I want a six pack, and you're comfortable in the gym, you ain't getting that six pack.
Yeah.
Or if you start outsourcing everything, you've got to do the hard yards. You can't. I've got loads of lines that I love my lines. You can't outsource your press ups. You've got to do your own press ups.
You can't send someone else to the gym for you.
Exactly, and there's some lovely justice in that, I think. It's like when you climb a mountain, you take a photo and you show your mate. The photo isn't as good. You had to climb the mountain to get the taking thing. And it's the same in life. You get out what you put in. I mean, cliched as that is.
Absolutely. Chris, listen, we've been on for over an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up. Your hotel, I'm looking forward to going to visit. I've seen some pictures, and I know you said you're going to rebrand, but it looks absolutely amazing. It's currently, what's it called? The Park.
So it's called the Park in Aviemore currently. And we are going to rebrand in spring, summer. We're doing the exterior cladding with larch and all these lots of things going on. And then it'll be brought under the wider brand of Sweeney. So it'll be Sweeney 2 because it's the second location.
Yeah, I have another one there. Yeah. And what's the plans after that? It's obviously up and running, and it's working as a hotel or a part hotel.
Yeah. So what happened very briefly? Then I know we're going to wrap up. Was we wanted to get the deal done last winter and do the full refurb in the winter, and we didn't complete the project until April 24.
Yeah.
And obviously then you've got summer looming. So, and you're bringing in 45, 50 grand a month in terms of gross turnover. So we couldn't miss the summer months. So we did a light refresh in terms of the rooms, kind of, more a clean and a little upgrade, but nothing much. Put in all the technology so we could run it as a smart hotel, and then just got trading. So we would completed in April, trading in the middle of June. And in July, we hit 83% occupancy from a standing start, which is amazing, really. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's up and running now. We did this phase 2 refurb in November, October, November, December. And then the phase 3 is going to be the externals and a few other little bits and bobs around it. So exciting. It's exciting. Good occupancy picking up again now. It's a ski resort in winter, you see. That's what's good about it. It's got the kayaking, bikes, all that in summer and spring and autumn, and then it's a ski resort in the winter. So that helps fill that gap, which is normally what would pull your overall occupancy down. And when we refinance, so we need to get that to stabilization. We were aiming for December 26. It's more likely now going to be either summer or autumn. Sorry, 25. We were aiming for December 25. It's going to be summer or autumn 26. But the GDV, once we've hit stabilization, will be about 1.7. So by the time we refinance, all the money will answer with the cash flow loads, a lot more. So all the money will be out, Angels will be paid back, and we're set to decide what we're going to do after that.
Wow. And you would go again if it's working?
Well, I don't know. It's a year and a half away. I guess it's that thing with your Angels. Depends how many of your Angels are going to go again. Do I need to raise more funds? Do I want to start paying down my Angels and kind of, like I said, I've got more cash flow than I need. Do I need another big project? It's a question for another day.
Yeah. Well, listen, I've wrote 3 pages of notes there to summarize when I go to put something on when I'm uploading the video, which is quite a lot, because there was a lot there, and I was actually sitting thinking we could do part 2 of this, because there's that much to talk about, but you're a busy man. So listen, maybe we'll do.
Well, you get the pints in, and we'll do part 2.
Yeah, we'll do the property wine podcast or something like that some evening. Right. But listen, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Some great little sayings there, some great lessons for people, and it just goes to show you. If I said to people at the start, this guy's working on a hotel in the Cairngorms, and there's loads of HMOs, they might be forgiven for thinking you'd start about 15, 20 years ago, but you really only get the property in 2016. And so 18. 2018. And thought about it in 2016.
Yeah, that's it.
2018, you're looking at 6 or 7 years, and what you've achieved is nothing short of.
There's another great saying: people overestimate what they can do in 12 months, but they underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Yeah,
and that's exactly it. 5 years of consistency. I mean, as you know, the last 2 years have been much more of a balance. I do a lot of traveling. I have a nicer balance. But that first 5 years, 4.5, 5 years was full on.
Full on, yeah. Well, that's it. Going back to the very first thing, pain now, reward later. Rather than most people want the reward now, and they don't realize the pain's coming down the road. You really can't have one without the other, unless you've got tons and tons of money. But Chris, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on today. I know you're a busy man, and I'm lucky to have caught you not traveling somewhere. So, listen, thanks very much.
Bye, mate. Cheers. Thank you.
All right, Chris.
Bye.